Hey everybody, Pete Woods here for Boulder Climbing. Today I'm hanging out with Stacey Weldon. Stacey Weldon, if you know, is a longtime competitor, member of the climbing community in Calgary, super influential, super successful. If you don't know, I just told you. So, very successful junior climber, has been climbing for as long as I can remember. And I think, Stacey, I think we've known each other maybe 20 years.
Probably, yeah.
Probably something like that. So I had the privilege of coaching Stacey when she was a junior, watching her compete at Worlds, and then watching that climbing career take off. But what we're doing here is interviews and conversations about climbing that are more than just those competition results. So obviously I want to talk a little bit about it because I do think it's interesting. I think you're a very successful climber, but I am equally interested in what's going on now in your life and what you're doing and the things you're doing for the CEC. So we're going to go on a bit of a chat and a bit of a conversation. And I am going to start off by saying that when I first met you, you were a climber on the junior team at the CCC, and I was lucky enough to coach you. I think you were very coachable and was like, you know, those moments where you think, maybe I don't want to be a coach anymore. And then you have one or two people, and definitely you and your sister and a couple of others were the people that made me think, you know what, I could keep doing this. So
no, that's cool. Thanks.
How did climbing come to you? I know your whole family's been climbing for a long time. How did you get into, I want to climb more?
Oh man, my first climbing memory was during gymnastics class at the University of Calgary. Have you been to that dingy basement wall they have? Like back in the day when it was
that's so gnarly.
It was just cement and then like 2x4s with sandpaper on the wall. That was my first climbing experience, and I was like, this is way more fun than gymnastics.
So to everybody that first time experiences was the CEC boulder climbing, I don't know, the Minneapolis Bouldering Project, visually picture what Stacey is describing to you and think.
It's still there. You can go see it.
You can go see it. And if that inspires you to become a climber, man, it's in your blood.
Yeah. And then my older brother started first. When he started climbing, the only gym in town was the rope gym at the U of C, and he had to be 12. So he started there, and then when the CCC opened, it's kind of just like a wave of Weldons.
That's pretty accurate, actually. One after another, after another, after another.
Yeah.
I mean, people just know the Weldons. You just like that's what you did, and you knew, and everyone traveled together, and there was somebody always counting the number of people, but not always necessarily counting shoes and chalk bags. And I've seen like the entire arc of emotion and success and lack of success due to all kinds of things, basically from everybody in your family. And I don't know that everybody has ever experienced. Like if I think about all the people I know that have slightly larger families that did sports, I don't think I know anybody that played on the same team as maybe more than one of their siblings, let alone in the same arena. And obviously, I mean, some of you are on the same team, but at the time, sort of split things.
Yeah.
How did you guys stay sane? I mean, I think I know some of those things, and I think I know some of these things because I have been like at the dinner table and in the car and all those things. So without my privilege of knowing, how did you guys stay sane?
I mean, I don't know. I think sane is maybe a strong word, but it was just normal. It was just what we did. I don't know. Every weekend was like hop in the van and going somewhere.
Because you guys generally got along. Like obviously you fought like siblings fight, but you were generally very supportive of each other and very, very good at picking each other up and moving each other along in the arc of the sport.
Yeah. And now we're all really, really close, which is awesome.
Which is amazing. And what's the pressure difference like? I'm just curious between the Youth World Championships and your first World Cup.
I mean, I don't know if it was a big difference. It was such a big change. I mean, there's that whole idea of like, hey, this is like an adult World Cup. I think Vail, I can't remember what year, 2008 maybe was my first World Cup. And it was kind of like no expectations, no pressure, because it was something so new. So I don't know if the pressure was that much bigger. Definitely going from youth to open, I didn't have a coach as an open athlete. There wasn't a lot of open competitors in the country, especially competing at World Cups. So that was a big change, to go from having a coach my whole life to just being on my own and doing my own thing.
And that's interesting that you say that, because now we're trying harder and harder and harder to have more support for our open athletes. And for a long time, our competitive scene was centered on the youth because we didn't have very many open athletes. So there wasn't anything to put resources for, and we didn't do that sort of build the infrastructure and wait for the athletes to come. We waited till we had this critical mass of athletes and then went, oh, we should maybe do something about it. So you're right. Like, basically take a couple of people, or in some instances one person, and tell them, sure, you can go. And basically just sort of usher you out the door to a foreign country to go and climb on a World Cup. And it must be very, very difficult to handle the logistics, the nuance, the pressure, the comp itself, all of those things without having a coaching support. And as you say, having gone through the youth, but you still managed to be successful. There's something in you that gave you that spark or that fire to say.
Yeah, and I don't think I realized that it wasn't perfect until maybe now. I loved it. I mean, I'm the kind of person that loves to travel alone, to meet new people, to just kind of like wander. So, and I do have a background in like human kinetics. I did a 2-year diploma in Vancouver, so I did have some background, but it is hard to coach yourself because you tend to just gravitate towards things that you're good at.
And it's hard to talk yourself out of a slump. Like anybody that's had, especially if you're talking about going on route comps or where, you know, there's more than one day, and the easy thing to do is to just sort of crater out. The hard thing to do is to have an actual positive look at your own climbing, what you've been doing, and not have someone to say, actually, no, this was good, this was good, this was good. Instead, you just sort of look at your result and go, wow, that was terrible. Why am I here? You know? So if you can, and you obviously had there's a part of your personality that lets you be successful in that environment. And I think, you know, we needed people that were the right people in the right place at the right time, not just in the right place at the right time, but the right kind of mental state and the right drive to be a competitive climber, to have sort of bridged what was no competitive open climbers to now we have a fairly healthy functioning structure.
I never had any support. I mean, I don't think there's any World Cups I was at by myself. I always had teammates. We sometimes had a team manager, and you know, people like Sean McCall are amazing at kind of being this support member and giving you feedback and stuff while at World Cup. So there's no, you're alone.
Yeah. So you go from competitive climber to school, and now you're a nurse, and then you're back. So I want to go a little bit. So now you're the CEC Athlete Rep, and this is the first time I believe that the CEC has elected an athlete into that position. So Sean was sort of a holding position, and then did we elect you? Because I don't know the details. Did we elect you, or did the CEC board?
Yeah, so Sean created the program because he's the athlete rep for the IFSC, and he wanted to bring that to Canada. And he'd kind of mentioned to me a few times that I should maybe think about doing it. Yeah, and then when Sean did kind of make the proposal and bring it to the CEC, they then appointed him onto the board. And so he finished out that year. It was 2 or 2.5 years ago now. And then at the Boulder, Open Boulder Nationals in Mississauga, is that a thing? That
up the block? Yeah. Mississauga. Is that place? It doesn't sound, it sounds made up.
Yeah, Mississauga. We had a vote, and so the athletes voted for me. I mean, I was the only one running, but we still held a vote just for process and just to raise some awareness. So
it's the classic joke. It's like, whew, it was close, but I pulled it out.
Yeah, voted for you.
Thank you. So how has it been being on the other side? So you were a youth climber, and you were a recipient of the program such as it was at the time. And now you have that CEC insight, and being the athlete rep is, I think, a really, really important position. I think it's very, very good. I sat on the Alberta board for a little while, and it's definitely, you look and think, okay, so who are we making these decisions for? Like, what level of person is being represented, and where are all the voices, and what's the consistency? So I absolutely think it's a great, great, great decision. So now you're on the other side of the development of the talent. What's it like, just from that, I guess, the change in approach? You're still a climber,
Yep.
but now your competitive side of climbing is focused on everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, first of all, I think for me personally, it was a really important step, because when I stopped competing, it was really hard. Like, it was just like an identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I'd been competing and climbing at a high level for like 20 years. I very quickly lost most of my sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
I was injured, and I was just like pretty bummed.
Right? You sort of stack those things together, and it's no small task to decide to walk. Just because you're not getting paid $100 million a year doesn't mean it's hard to walk away from competitive sports.
Yeah, so that was really hard. So staying involved was a big, big thing for me. I think it really helped me kind of get through that. I probably depression, or like lack of identity, and just staying involved. And
I mean, I feel the same thing, and I was obviously never nearly as successful as you were, but I was a competitive climber for probably 25 years. And you know, the thing that I really found interesting was saying, okay, I do want to do more. I want to stay involved.
Mm-hmm.
What that looked like. So I tried the board out. I didn't like it, and I coached for a while and thought it was great. And then you having something that keeps you around the sport that gave you life for so long is so important. And I'm lucky enough to be able to do the commentary and be able to host comps, and that puts me right in the middle of it. But what advice would you give to somebody who has been competing and enjoying themselves and is looking for that? I don't know that I do enough other things, but I don't like competing, or I'm getting injured, or somebody who's sort of in that middle range, like the average person that competes for fun eventually stops.
And I mean, I think climbing's unique in that you can keep climbing, and not competitively. You can climb outside and have the same kind of like goals and drive and experiences and community. Whereas some of these like specialty sports like bobsled or ski jumping, stuff like that, I think it's a lot harder for those athletes to make that transition, because you can't just like bobsled recreationally.
I mean, imagine the length of the waiver you'd have to sign to bobsled, like just sort of at the local bobsled track. And I think we almost overlooked that you can just go to the gym. Like, obviously the competitions are, you know, a fuel or something to train for, but there's lots of places to find goals or set goals in the climbing community. And just being able to stay involved in that way is something that you almost overlook it, because it's the answer. You're like, well, just go climbing. You're like, well, I don't like climbing. I like competing. So you gotta, you know, find a way around that.
Yeah. For me too, this summer, well, I don't know if we'll be climbing much this summer, but you know, I'm really psyched on like trad climbing and learning the ropes of more like big wall stuff, and just that cerebral, something different. Like, you're still climbing, maybe not super hard, but using your brain in a different way, but still getting outside and moving up.
Yeah, what you're looking for is fear. You're using your brain in a way fear attached to it. Is that what we're maybe getting at?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know that that's something that you were considering getting into, because I mean, a lot of people that are spending their time being, you know, that much effort in gyms and sport climbing and bouldering, you generally don't think about that aspect, which is obviously a huge piece of the climbing community is going out trad climbing. And we're lucky enough to live in Bow Valley, where there's lots of good and lots of sort of sketchy, but still fun days out. So you're, that's a really cool, I mean, it's not even a transition. I was going to say transition, even though I shouldn't, because it's all, you're very good at grabbing holds and moving upwards. It's just it's a different mechanism. So It's a
Yeah.
different angle of the sport. So that's pretty cool. And that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent a couple weeks in Moab in November, trying my hand at crag climbing.
As it were, yeah.
God, I got my butt kicked. I actually found the like really thin, like 12s easier than the like 5'9". I fell off every 5'9" that I got on.
It's amazing.
I mean, I didn't lead anything hard, but.
Right. But there's something in that where you're like, I just want to get in and crimp something.
Yeah, where are the holes? But it's just smooth.
Everything is just like,
like
the worst case scenario for the rest of us. Yeah. Dude, that's really cool. I think that'll be really fun. And that's something that's been in the back of my mind for years too, is like, at what point do I say, okay, I'm going to go out and climb, 25 pitches of something, and spend that kind of day outside. So that's really cool.
Yeah, there's just so many like avenues in climbing. You never get bored.
And you're also, I know you ski a bunch. I know you ride mountain bikes around. So those things help too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I love mountain biking, and there's so many different things that I love doing that I never did them when I was competing, just for fear of getting injured, or like, oh, I don't have time because I'm to train. So that kind of realization, it took a while, but that realization of like, I can do whatever I want now. I don't have to worry about having an extra whatever plate of food, or you kind of start to obsess about that kind of stuff when you're competing, like training and eating. And
yeah, for sure. And I mean, I remember when I was coaching you, you were wrestling.
Oh yeah.
You had to make a decision, or you didn't have to, but you did make a decision, because there is only so much time and mental energy and physical stress that you can put on yourself when you're that age. And, climbing one out. And I mean, who's to say that you wouldn't have gone on to be like a collegiate level wrestler, because you are a gifted athlete, and those things are easier for people that are very good at multiple sports. But it's hard to quit a sport. I mean, it's hard to quit a sport when you're a kid.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's just community of it too, right? You make friends, and especially at that age.
Yeah, and people, I think if we'd been on the other side of that and you'd chosen wrestling, people would have looked around and be like, where did Stacey quit? Would ask those questions. And that we very quickly develop that community, that family mindset. And, when you travel together and when you compete together, and then, when, especially in the era that you competed, and the same now. But
and we didn't like separate age categories, right? So you'd have everybody in ISO, and you'd go out one at a time. You got to like pick your song that you climb to, and it would take like 8 hours
to get through.
But
it puts you in this place where you were around everybody all the time, right?
Yeah,
and
it's still a really tight-knit community, but I think like 15 years ago it was like, because there's only like 50 of us competing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And we just took over a gym and filled it up, and and we did it almost every weekend through the winter. So it's that togetherness and that mindset where everybody's out to do the same thing. We're all trying to get to the same place. Everybody's trying to win, but it was the community. I don't think that's the thing I've seen change. It hasn't changed in all those years. Is that
which is just awesome. I love it.
Exactly. Is that everybody wants to see everyone else succeed. And whether it's your close friend or just, it almost gets the better of you when you're watching someone climb on the route that you came off of. There's that little bit of your brain is like, oh my God, I really want to win. But you start to find yourself getting excited and that's unique to climbing. And I think it either speaks to the personalities that brought it in, or at least, the personalities continue to have that effect on it. And I'm curious how much interaction you have with individual climbers in your role. So what kind of things are you involved with?
So I work a lot with our high performance director. So we, a lot of the like policies and programs and stuff that they put out, me along with the rest of the athletes commission. So we have a boulder rep, speed rep, and lead rep. We try and meet once a month, and we'll give feedback on these policies and programs and stuff, just to kind of make sure they fit what the athletes think should be going on, and they listen to us, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we have a really good relationship with our high performance director. We have a new ED, and she's super psyched, Christiane, on the athletes commission too. So looking forward to developing that relationship. But yeah, I deal a lot with, mostly with the athletes commission, and then I'm not on the ground as much as the other athlete reps. So they're kind of like, they're still competing, they're still in the scene, getting feedback from people. So I get a lot of feedback from them about what's going on and what people are kind of unhappy with, and then try and kind of gather that all together and bring it to Andrew, our HPD, and to the board, just to, yeah, kind of close that gap of like athletes board.
There's a gap. There's sort of a, almost like the shouting into the abyss. So you're like, okay, so I put my complaint in the complaint jar, and I put the same complaint in the complaint jar for 6 years in a row, and it feels like no one's even reading them. So now you have this, okay, if you're really serious about something that you want to change, then put together an articulate reason or something you want to have, talk to your athlete rep, and then they bring that up, and then you get a voice. And I guess, you know, I'm assuming part of your role is sort of that strategic level. Okay, are there a few sort of one-offs every now and then, but is there a consistency that people,
Yeah.
this isn't working, or this is, we don't like, and then you're saying, okay, the things that are either consistent or very serious are the things that, you know, that actually need change. And sometimes, you know, we do need to see that it's not like we got it right once and we just sit back. We have to be able to realize that there's change to be made.
Yeah, and I think like I've talked with a lot of athlete reps from other sports, and I think that in climbing we are very lucky. The board is very supportive of the athletes. They understand that, like, the only reason that the board exists is, right, athletes.
It's a funny that you say that, because it's almost like the board's like, we'd be here regardless. It's like, no, probably not.
Yeah. What would you do?
What would you actually do? But they'd find something. They'd find something to do.
But yeah, there's an organization called Athletes Can, that basically just is a support network for athlete reps for all of Canada. So I've learned a ton from them. They have a big forum every year in September where they just bring all the athlete reps together and just try and teach them about like the bureaucratic side of things, but then also just like how to interact with your athletes and what should you be doing and how can you make change. And it's not just too about like complaints and stuff, which sometimes I feel like I become the complaint.
That's where we immediately go to, is like, man, we're just fed up. It's like, there's some positive feedback.
Yeah. But it's also just like trying to, I don't know, just be like an open ear for people, or just being a safe place to come if people are unsure about things. Like approaching the board can maybe be a little bit intimidating. Shouldn't be, but it is. And I know that feeling. So just being kind of that middleman for people to be like, hey, I've got this thing and I don't know who to talk to. And just being able to like point people in the right direction or just give them some feedback. And so.
That's great. And I think you're absolutely the right person for the job. I think you're just a very thoughtful, very compassionate person. And I think that people, you know, should know that this is the person that's representing them, isn't somebody who's like, yeah, I guess I'll take a spot on the board for, you know, the huge salary they gave me. It's something that like, hey, it's paying my mortgage. It's not. It's something that you chose to do because, you know, the ability to give back to a sport and stay involved is amazing, and it's about the growth. And I had a conversation with Luigi a little while ago, and he was making like a huge point about how important it is that we don't like keep it for ourselves or trying to hang on to an era, that we look for the next generation and support them to be more successful than we were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm assuming you've seen some pretty interesting changes just from when you were going to World Cups to sort of that space in which we've grown, and now you're part of building that team that's sending people to World Cups. And I mean, without being too much of the in a perfect world, do you
Yeah.
think you would have had a different or stayed in the sport longer if you fast forwarded everything 15 years and you were now sort of at your peak as an open level climber?
Um, I don't know. That's tough. It's a tough one for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You're just gonna skirt around it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe that speaks a little bit about you and who you are as a personality. Because as you were saying, that you were okay with the environment that you were thrown into because you actually liked it, and maybe you thrived on it more than you would have in, you know, a whole pile of structure where someone's saying, "Hey, you," and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I just want to go to the market. I want to hang out, and then I'll go to bed on time, I promise, and I'll get up tomorrow and I'll crush it."
Yeah. Yeah. And actually just that, like speaking about structure, I think, like having more structure in the like Canadian scene when I was competing might have been a good thing for me. Because before it was just like, oh, you make like top 20 at nationals, and if you have money, you can go to whatever comps you want. Like the protocols and stuff that are now in place, like you need to be performing all the time. It might have been a good motivator for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's
Mm.
interesting. Is we have changed quite a bit in that way, and I think we've done the right thing. I've had, I think, an endless number of conversations over the last handful of years, getting that, are we doing, you know, how are we choosing our athletes? And I know I'm very opinionated about it. And if you've ever watched the live stream that I'm on, I will bring it up because I think it's important that we are putting out a national program that is built for success and not built for tourism. And there was this idea that it was, as you say, you can go, like full stop. Like you're
Yeah.
allowed to go. We'll give you a jersey. You know, we'll sign your document.
You can buy your, yeah.
Sorry, you're right. You can buy your jersey, but we'll let you buy one, and then we'll sign your documents and we'll let
Yes,
you go.
there's been so much progress, and I think, yeah, obviously not all of it has been perfect, but
A
getting
few
there.
things have gone along the way, have gone right, and I think it's cool that you get to be a part of that growth. And I think that we're in good hands. I absolutely, truly believe that. I see. I mean, I always see lots of cool things coming from you. I saw you were part of the panel for She Summits. What was that?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, it's this just amazing organization that's putting together this video series, and I mean, obviously they've had to stop now with no gatherings, but they're doing a lot of online stuff that's been super cool. So check them out. It's just about just elevating women in our community and just in sports in general. And they've got a lot of really great short films that they've been showing, kind of like little film series. So yeah, it was fun. I haven't, I used to do a lot of public speaking, maybe in my 20s, and I haven't in a long time. So that was the first one in a while. And I was like, oh, I need to do this more. It's fun.
Fired up. And did they approach you? Do they have like a membership? How does that organization work?
I'm not, it was actually, I think my sister was involved in the one in Squamish that's supposed to be happening in the future. And they were asking about people in Calgary. So yeah, my sister kind of gave them my name.
That's the Weldon way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you know this, but your mom brought cookies to nationals when it was in Calgary last year.
She brings cookies everywhere.
But there's not a child left competing at nationals,
No, I know.
not even involved. And there's this Tupperware
Yeah.
with a sticker that says, "Good luck, everyone. Enjoy a cookie." The
Yeah.
Weldons. And I was like, what? I have a photo of it on my phone. I was like, what?
Yeah, if I'm ever going to a comp, even if it's like in Montreal, she'll be like, wait, let me give you a bag of cookies.
And there's this, it brings to mind this thought that there's an endless supply of cookies in your house.
More or less.
More or less, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty good. It was pretty good. There's always that
Some in the freezer
feeling
somewhere.
of being welcomed by, you know, not just cookies, but that I use it as a metaphor for how thoughtful the environment that you grew up in at home, let alone in the climbing community. And I think that you've managed to bring that and it sort of exude. I think everybody has. I think all of your siblings have. I think Chris, Mike, and Vicky are all, you know, really just wonderful, positive people. And I think we're lucky that we had this era of the Weldons that sort of swept through Canadian climbing. And, you know, it would be wrong to think that you didn't make a difference, that you didn't have active change. And especially now that you're involved in having a voice into the year that's making the change. And I think it's awesome. So,
Thanks.
congratulations to you. And I want to talk a little bit about now, because now you're a nurse.
Yeah.
And which is, I think, a wonderful thing as well. And I think it's exactly the same trend, is that you picked a career path in which you're absolutely dedicated to helping other people. So a crazy time to be a nurse, but
Yeah.
how's it been in general? Sort of the whole arc of, I'm going to go and this is what my career is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think nursing is an awesome job for climbers, because the schedule is so flexible. There's work all around the world. In times like these, you have job security. But yeah, I think climbing definitely made me a better nurse. Just that ability to focus under pressure and to be able to just to stay calm in crazy situations. And I've really been able to draw on my mental training from climbing and bring it into the nursing world. And I do work in the emergency room, so things can get pretty bonkers.
Pretty hairy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long have you been at it now? Like full time, like out of school, working as a nurse?
So I graduated in 2011, and then I dedicated the next couple of years to climbing in World Cups. So I just worked, it was kind of perfect. I worked casually as a nurse. So when I was in Canada, I was based out of Canmore. I would just pick up shifts and train, and then I could just take off and go compete. And then I went back to school and did a specialty course in emergency nursing, and then did my practicum for that at the Foothills Emergency, which is where I now work. Yeah, we're like the trauma center, stroke center, cardiac center for Southern Alberta. So
you're getting all that experience. Is there more that you want to do in that arena? Like, do you want to be a surgeon or a doctor, or is nursing where it's at?
No, I'm pretty stoked. Like the thought of going, I have thought a few times of like, I could maybe go to med school, but I don't think it's actually what I would want to do. I like the schedule that I have right now, the work that I'm doing. I love it. I thought of going back to school for like 6 years is like,
it's a bit daunting, hey? Like,
yeah.
why would I do that? Why would I do that to myself?
Yeah, no, it's good. And there's so many things you can do with nursing. Like I've, one of the things that I've thought about doing in the future is maybe some travel nursing in BC. There's lots of short contracts you can go. Bella Coola is a place I'd be interested in checking out. There's like some fantastic looking granite up there that's being developed. I
thought you were going to say there's a fantastic hospital. That's where my mind was, oh, she's into it now. Now we're talking about like, what hospitals do I want to work in? And you're like, the climbing brain is still 100% intact.
So yeah, no, yeah, I'm stoked on being a nurse. And even if I get burnt out doing what I'm doing now, which I truly believe will happen in the next like 5 to 10 years, there's like go into teaching or research or any number of public health. So there's just, so many options. It's great.
The future is bright. Well, they're lucky to have you, as we were lucky to have you, and we still are. And before we go, I have some questions.
Okay.
That I'm going to ask everybody that I interview through this whole series. We're getting to know people. We're talking about climbing. And these are mostly unrelated to climbing, and they are, don't overthink them. They are little one shots. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
What sport are you the best at besides climbing?
Mountain biking. Okay. Skiing. Oh, I don't know.
Final answer?
Mountain biking.
Mountain biking. It's in the book. Would you rather go climbing in the desert or in the mountains?
Mountains.
I mean, it's backyard, right?
Desert's pretty great, but yeah, mountains are just gorgeous.
Okay. What's your favorite thing to cook for yourself?
Breakfast.
Nice. What is an odd fact about you that we probably don't know?
Oh, geez. Maybe I'm messy.
Really? I actually wouldn't have expected that.
I go through waves of like, not like dirty, but just like
But messy.
cluttered.
That's fair. I'll give it to you. What's the favorite place that you visited sort of for any reason?
One of my favorite trips was so I was coaching at the Youth World Cup in Ecuador, a long time, like 2007, maybe.
No, you can't, because I can't be that old, so it's call it 5 years ago, we'll be good.
Yeah, we'll be good. There's this place, I'm pretty sure, unfortunately, it's closed now because people didn't respect it, but there's this place in Argentina just north of Bariloche called Valle Encantado, the Enchanted Valley. And it's just this amazing sport climbing. You'd take the bus like 45 minutes north of town, and then you'd have to like wave across the river, and someone would like bring a dinghy over and take you to the little beach on the other side. And everyone was just like camped on this little beach. You get up in the morning and go climbing, and then have a little siesta, jump in the river, and then go climbing again from like 8 p.m. till midnight.
That sounds amazing.
And the climbing was like pretty fantastic. But yeah, I think it was on private land, and they kind of like put up with having a couple of climbers there. But when the hordes showed up and people were throwing toilet paper everywhere, it got shut down pretty quick.
Yeah, so there's a lesson in there.
Mm-hmm. Take care of your land.
Manage your access. Okay. Rain or snow?
Snow.
Yeah. What is something that you are super psyched on right now?
I have been in my confinement making earrings that I'm like super psyched on. Whoop, wait. Where's my camera? There.
There you go.
Ta-da.
Dude, that's cool.
Yeah.
Weldon earrings. We'll keep an eye out for the Etsy shop.
Yeah. With my side hustle.
That's good. I like it. What is your go-to boredom breaker?
Boredom breaker. Probably Netflix.
Okay, it's fair.
I've been playing Zelda, which
What?
Yeah.
Like original Zelda?
Yeah, like Super Nintendo original. Yeah.
See, that's an odd fact about you.
Oh, there you go.
You're playing Zelda.
Yeah.
For the record. It's okay that they can come to you later.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you rather be the driver or the passenger?
Probably the passenger. Just like sleep. Not a very good passenger.
Well, I feel you. What movie makes you cry every time?
Oh man, what's that one with Macaulay Culkin and I can't think of what it's called, where he gets like stung by all the bees and then something girl.
Yes. People will know what you're talking about
Okay.
eventually. But I know what you're talking about, and that is a good one. What profession, other than your own, would you love to try?
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a firefighter.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Those are good answers. I like them. Stacey, thanks for your time. I know, I know we're all at home but we're still busy and we still have stuff to do. So I really appreciate your time this morning. Ladies and gentlemen watching, Stacey Weldon, truly a kind, thoughtful, inspirational, wonderful all-around person. And we're lucky to have you in our climbing community, and I hope that we keep you in our climbing community for a long time. So
same to you. We're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. It's fun, right? This is the stuff that keeps it engaging, and this is the stuff that makes us want to stay involved. And we built this community around ourselves that we need to maintain, and I think we're all doing a really good job of it. And the idea of talking to people like yourself is that people can't go to the gym right now. People miss the people, and who are your training partners, and how much more time do you spend chatting in the gym than you do climbing.
Mucho.
Mucho. So this is an opportunity for us to reconnect and stay involved with people. And I think that it's important. And I think that it's cool that we get to talk a little bit about history, and we get to talk a little bit about, you know, the things that brought people to climbing, the things that kept them there, and the things that make them different. And, you know, you're one of those people, so it was super cool. And I think in the gym, and I think we need to remember that we should be connecting and keep that community rolling. So
Yeah.
hope I get to see you soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.